Well, thank you for posting. I appreciate it. I'll start here in about a minute, maybe less. Who knows? I'll probably be looking up a lot of words and stopping a lot because these words are hard. A what? It doesn't get you flagged at all. I've said plenty of stuff that should get you flagged, but none of it gets me flagged. The visual gets me flagged. That's always the visual. All right. All right. Two, ariflexia, high arches, heightened amyotrophy, which I don't know what that word is. Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop. Progressive wasting or atrophy of muscle tissue, typically caused by a disease damage or damage to the nerves that supply most muscles. Let's do this now.
Amyotrophy.
Amyotrophy. Amyotrophy. Argyle Robertson, pupil in mental disorders. Paul Gerard and Julian D. Algalaria. age age 40 years of age was admitted following a uh, a self-unaliving attempt. He seems of he seems of interest to us and on the account of the mental disorders he presented. From the mental point of view, H conforms to the classical type of imbalanced person with character disorders. This intellectual development was normal, and he was a good primary school student until 12 and a half. But earlier in his childhood, he began to manifest a character disorder. H got on fairly well with his father, but he always displayed hostility towards his mother and his brother. He would get angry at the slightest vexation and suffered from periods of depression. At 20 years of age, he was enlisted and mobilized for active army duty. He was ill for some part of the war. After the armistice, yeah, I'm gonna look it up anyways. Yeah, I said it. It's okay.
Armistice.
A formal agreement between warring parties to temporarily or permanently stop fighting. He earned a good enough living as a salesman, a trade representative, and a mechanic. In 1920, he got married, but quickly fell out with his wife, who left him owing to his difficult character. He then started with irregular bouts of drinking, but largely during his period of depression akin to desomatics, as many of as 14 Why? Why are you doing that?
Anisette.
Anisette. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Hello? I'm not doing it on purpose. It's a sweet, clear Mediterranean liqueur flavor with, oh my gosh, that's weird. This one was
Anisette.
Anisette. Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Where was it at? Where was it at? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 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 Per day. He employed the usual tricks of the unbalanced person to obtain from his mother the money that he squandered. Irritable, overexcited, and with a slight tendency towards ideas of persecution, he was viewed poorly by most of his neighbors. During other periods he appeared sad, inactive, pessimistic. During one of these bouts caused by the sentimental delusions and under the heavy influence of alcohol, he attempted to commit suicide by drowning. The special orderly assessment records a state of excitation and, oh my gosh, with something that I cannot pronounce. Logorrhea. What? Okay. We have to look at what they mean. Do we not? No? Yes? No? Hello? You there? What, am I not supposed to look them up?
Logorrhea.
A compulsive, uncontrollable, and excessive flow of speech. And another word. Of course, it won't let me say it out loud.
Hypertonia.
Hypertonia is the next word, and it means a medical condition characterized by excessive muscle tone, making the muscles unusually stiff and rigid. And then it's pomposity. Pomposity. Pomposity.
Pomposity.
I did it, yeah. The equality of behavior or speaking in an overtly serious, self-important, or grandiose manner. Instability in moralism, and moral degradation. At the asylum, the patient became very docile, but rather underexcited. It would be of interest with regards to this patient to raise the problems of penal responsibilities, which is sometimes so difficult to decide. Are the instinctive and antisocial reactions that HA presents to be related to his neurological syndromes? Otherwise said, in the case of criminal behavior, it is laid down that he be considered a constitutional pervert. Xavier and Paul Abley. I think that only the history of the individual and his illness make it possible to decide. 3. Rosie Levy syndrome, Gorardi and Derambes. LR, 17 years of age, entered the Villejaff Asylum on 31st September 1932. His mental disorders were essentially what caught the family's attention up to the beginning of 1932. L's family thought him to be a timid young man and physically weak. not ill. About After a bout of flu at the start of the year, he suffered from an otis complication, an otis. An inflammation or infection of the ear. Now they have it something else. They have it pronounced something else.
Otitis.
Otitis. So otitis. Complicated with mastoiditis, for which he required an operation in April. The following month, he was suddenly overcome with the state of fear, excluding anxiety, and beginning letting out screams and trembling. He complained of distinct dizzy spells. In the following days, he remained anxious and tried to escape from his home without being able to provide any explanation. He was taken to the countryside to get some rest and claimed to be bored in his new lodging, to be suffocating, to its being too hot. He complained that one of his sides was too fat. He was sad and saw sadness everywhere around him. He was frightened at night, especially when he was alone in his room. From time to time, periods of irritation arose. He complained of not being cared for as he ought to be, and sometimes even pushes his mother and his grandmother. He was placed at La Sepultura, which is in French, where he has been for 2 months. But he often has fits and fears, with unwarranted agitation and outbursts of anger. Once he threw a glass at an orderly head. The state was the reason for his internment. The observation and mental examinations allow us to single out the following elements. Number 1, an almost continuous depressed state, anxiety, pessimism, sadness, feelings of mental and physical weaknesses, a tendency towards isolation, self-mutism, on and off. Let's see if I can do this. Synthetic. That's not synthetic. Synthetic. Okay, we're gonna look it up anyways. There it is. And it's relating to a subconscious internal sensory awareness of your own body. Pronunciation. Of course, I have to watch a damn video. Synesthetic. Did I say that before? Synesthetic? Did I say that? Synesthetic? Okay. All right. Synesthetic disorders with feelings of heat, of suffocation. When I am in that state, I do not insist. I just sit down on a bench without a word. I am frightened at night, as if something is about to happen, as if I am about to pass away. The tiresome, affective state is combined with the almost continual intellectual and psychomotor inhabitation. Oh my gosh, I gotta look at this. Excitation, irritability, and anger. The information given above indicates some of these types of incidents. During his stay in the asylum, the patient appeared more docile and apathetic. Impairment of muscular sensibility and the personality as regards the patient's mental syndrome. With this element is the most interesting one, and it occurs with the physical impairment. Periodically, the psychological notion of the body and especially of the set of active muscles is severely disrupted. This imperfection impacts on the patient's psychic personality. Here is how he expresses himself. Quote, whenever I walk for some time, I become tired. I no longer feel my legs. it seems to me that I am walking on cotton or on rubber. It becomes necessary to rest, otherwise I would lose consciousness. On the other occasions, he expressed himself more clearly still. Whenever I've walked for a long time, I am obliged to stop. It seems that it is not, that it is not I who walks. I do not feel my legs are walking through my will. I am not moving. I am not transported as if I was in a car. I said I am transported. I did not feel my personality. The first symptoms signaled by the patient is subjective disorder of the proprioceptive. Let me look up this word. Your body's inability to sense its own position movement.
Proprioception.
Proprioception. It's proprioception. Oh, it's proprioceptive then. It's just with the sensibility, which I had objectively always found to be normal. It is interesting to note the consequences of these subjective disorders and the proprioceptive sensibility on the syntheses of the personality. The patient describes it spontaneously with naivety and accuracy. The personality no longer appropriates muscular activity. The individual has the feeling of passively submitting to walking movements. He is not the one who walks, but instead he is, as he says, transported, as if I was in a car. The result of this deficit is the notion of the ego, of the personality, which gives out to such a point. The patient says that if he did not stop, he would lose consciousness. It is important within the psychiatric purview to emphasize this syndrome. On several occasions, we said concerning hebephrenia. Let me look at this up. EPHRENIA. Okay. It's a severe chronic form of schizophrenia characterized by highly disorganized thought, speech, and behavior, along with inappropriate or flat emotional response. Now they have it something else. All right, let's find out. Hebephrenic and chronic delirium. That the synthesis of the personality was performed by the combination of the kinesthetic. Let's make sure, let's look at that word. Make sure I'm saying that one right. Is that right? Kinesthetic? Yeah. I'm 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 looking it up right now.
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic. Interesting. Kinesthetic. All right. Several chronic forms of. Oh yeah, I already read it. It's kinesthetic. No, that's the wrong one. Kinesthetic. Let me go back to that one. Kinesthetic, meaning Learning or experiencing things through physical activity or movement, kinesthetic. Or, oh gosh, here we go, proprioceptive inputs. Here we contribute an example that, from the purely neurological point of departure, moves towards psychic disorder. We must also underscore the missing elements of appropriation without the personality, which in our view plays such an important role in the genesis of symptoms of chronic delirium. 4. First signs of ideas of grandeur and an infantile type. To the written questionnaire filled in on the day of admission, the patient replied, quote, what are your intentions? Sometimes has idea of grandeur, the ambition to hold an important position. The day after, he explains, on occasions I have decided I have an idea, I have ideas of grandeur and would like to be a minister, a lawyer, a doctor, but preferably a minister of post, and telephony, and undertake reforms. I am very serious. I say this, but I am not sure I am really convinced. These are imaginary reveries pertaining to childhood and youth that are almost normal, but that are expressed here with infantile naivety. 5. The patient's mental basis is barely impaired. His intelligence is normal, his memory is good, and his judgment ought to be qualified more as infantile than as defective. He presents neither genuinely disillusions, ideas, nor psychosensorial disorders, sensorial disorders. Added to this mental syndrome is the significant physical syndrome. Mobility, physical strength. He began to walk at 10 months, just like other infants. At 9 or 10 years of age, his family noticed that he could neither walk quickly nor jump. Since that time, he has always been muscularly weak, tiring easily, not liking either games or sports, standing upright. He presents a certain instability with a few oscillations on the great amplitude. His gait is slow, hesitant, but not uncoordinated. He has no dizziness or step edge gait, right? Anyways, we have noted that he is quick to tire. Grodar insists on the role of body schema disorders is the genesis of delusion. Over the last 20 years, in fact, studies on the notion of one's own body, corpse propri, have enabled us to understand a great number of psychopathological manifestations. Even better, these studies have supported a novel thematization. I gotta look up this word. Did you give up? Told you. It's like that. I hate these. Here it is. The process of converting an idea, text, or experience into central topics, core, Muffet, or themes. Hold on a second. And of course, I have to watch a goddamn fucking video just to fucking get the right thing. Thematization. Interesting. Of the philosophical problem. Oh my gosh, another word. Corporinity. Recently, at the International Congress of Philosophy in Geneva, M. Merleau-Ponty observed that the body had, in the wake of multiple studies, recovered its dignity. The wandering mind, earth real and scornful, discovers a body of its own level. Here again, we see a combat against spiritualist dualism. In his own classic works, oh my gosh, delimited, delimited the question. Oh my gosh, Hasiod envisioned it from the Thalamus angle a few years ago. His essays include thus what we present concerning both the repercussions on the personality of symptoms of an oh my gosh, another word. This is just full of words just to look up, huh? It's a neurological condition where a person is unaware of their own illness or cognitive defects, often mistaken for psychological denial. Pronunciation. Anosognosia. Type and the disruption of the ego image in the course of neurosis and psychosis does not permit any limits to be fixed between the two modes of facts. The feelings of the physical ego cannot be separated from that of the moral ego, as both are profoundly integrated into each other by our affective life, which assures the unity, all that which tends to disassociate. The one is reflected in the other. No distinctions can be made formally between depersonalization and, oh my gosh, this big huge word that I have to go and find. Jesus Christ. It's like every word I have to look up. And they're long too. It's a psychological condition where a person loses their conscious awareness or feelings of ownership on half of their body, typically following the stroke or brain injury. Let's find out the pronunciation now. I'm about to watch another fucking video. Yes, it won't let me pronounce it. No, I went to definition. Stop doing definition. Yep, gotta watch a video. Yay.
Hemisomatognosia.
I'm not gonna say it again.
Hemisomatognosia.
Yeah, that's helpful. In any case, the Girard is right to insist on this. It can be henceforth be taken for granted that disorders of the body ego have as much psychopathological weight as character or intellectual disorders. 4. Cerebral paradoxataxia and delusion. Gotta look up this word. I swear to God, it's every word. Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm going to remember. I don't think we went over this word. They have it like listed a different way, not how it's spelled in here. Jesus Christ. Yeah, they have it like spelled differently and everything. Heterodoxia and delusion. I'm just gonna try it. Oh my gosh, another word. Who's this? Incha Gadsden, 30 years old, a pork butcher, soldier of the don't know what that in with a zero on top of it regiment, of colonial infantry entered what? Then would say north. Let's find out. N with an O, a zero at the top. What does N with a zero on the top of it mean? Come on. What does N with the zero? Oh my gosh. Letter N with a zero upper right hand corner mean? Represents a set of natural numbers, including zero. Weird. Okay. Of colonial infantry, I'm going to believe, enter the CDP and the 11th region on 27th April 1919. Family history. The following information was taken in part from military files and in part gathered by police inquiries among his family and neighbors. The father, who likely had congenital mental slowing down, died at 55 years of age. The mother, in good health, is mentally fit, and an uncle of weak mind suffers of a nervous affection that has immobilized him and appears to result from cerebellar ataxia. The patient has always been considered as a bit poor in intelligence. In 1908, he volunteered for the, I'm going to say it, the North Regiment of the Colonial Infantry, and was exempted from service for non-intelligence in Saigon in 18th September 1912. Following some accidents that were most likely aesthetic and the result of sunstroke, once cured, he took up the profession of pork butcher up until the start of the war. His intelligence had not weakened to any degree. History of illness enlisted on 28th August 1914 for the duration of war. He was assigned to the North Regiment of Colonial Infantry and sent immediately to the front. On 9th October 1914, somewhere close to Santi Menenhald, he was severely wounded and shocked. Assigned to an observation post with one of his colleagues, a shell decapitated his companion, and some fragments of it hit him near the right ear and right shoulder. You took the head of his friend and embraced it, saying goodbye. He remained at the post where orderlies came to fetch him. At one time did he lose consciousness? According to him, at no time, thank you. According to him, his ear and shoulders wounds were not too serious. The same day he was evacuated to St. Mindenhald. He was hospitalized at Troyes for 15 days. On 24th October 1914, he was exempted on the medical grounds of mental problems. Back home with his mother in X, his mother soon noticed that he had nocturnal urinary incontinence. Urinary incontinence. Thank you. Trembling. Yeah, I got that. I get it. I just needed to know the word. Trembling limbs and problems. Walking, he fell down frequently, without losing consciousness. His conditions gradually got worse, and little by little, he lost his mind. At the start of 1918, he became unable to eat or dress by himself. Around March 1919, the patient's mother, given that the disorders were progressing, that his care and observation required constant attention, and surmising that his condition might be a combat stress reaction, asking for medical advice on this issue. One of us, together with another colleague, wrote up a consultation enumerating the observed physical and mental symptoms. The information drawn from the clinical examination, it was concluded, does not of itself admit the existence of a cause-effect relations between these symptoms and combat stress reaction. As a result, investigations within the military setup were necessary Following actions undertaken by the family, the patients entered the psychiatric center of the 11th region on 27th April 1990. Current state, April 1990. The patient remained in the hospital for about a month. He was submitted to repeated examinations. He manifested and as yet undermined cerebellum syndrome. Cerebellum, is that right? Cerebellar syndromes. What is more, without any manifest signs of intellectual weakening. Here I studied only the mental disorders of particular interest. The disillusion syndrome, syndrome de Laurent. The interrogation immediately revealed disillusion, delusions, disorders, which at first glance seemed to be accompanied by psychosensorial disorders. Illusions or hallucinations. We first described them and then proved the results of the examination of the psychic function, viewed outside of that which concerned delusion ideas. The theme of the delusion is the following. The patient declares to all comers that he is married, though he is a bachelor, that he sleeps with his wife every night, that he has voluptuous sensations, etc. Here is how he recounts the fact. Since my exemption, I have lived with my mother in 10. I don't know if it's 10 or X. The very day my wife passes from the front by in front of the house, I stand on the steps of my door. She continues her path. I have never spoke a word. We have never spoke a word to each other. She looks at me a little each time. That means she loves me. Naturally, I call after her, but she doesn't come. I said that I asked for her hand in marriage, but I was not signed anything. We've never arranged the day or the hour. He does not recall the exact date of this marriage, which may go back a year and a half, as he cannot walk. He never went to the town hall, but it was a genuine marriage. My marriage is not all in my head, he said. Where is that? Yeah, there it is. He said, this woman did not live with him, but she came to see him each night. She comes to sleep with me when everyone is asleep. She does not speak to me. She sends me to sleep with chloroform. I feel it nice and strong. She is the one who sends me to sleep. She places herself on top of me, holds me in her arms. I feel myself falling asleep. It's the chloroform. She puts me to sleep. It gives me intense physical pleasure. Are you fumbling with your phone? That's okay. So, on some details, variations of contradictions emerge. On one, on one and the same day, he said that, quote, he neither hears nor sees this woman, and that he smells her, and her hair is black. He always states that she has never spoken to him after the supposed coitus. This woman wakes him up from the chloroform. At this moment, he says, my nerves take over me. They work me over. This puts me in a bad mood, and I fall out of my bed. He presents a nervous breakdown based on annoyance, otherwise put a wild crises. He had us note that she ought to come and spend the night with me, but without putting me to sleep. He would add that he's had enough of this woman and her hiding, and that he was going to leave her. That being a good looking boy, he would easily find another. Plenty more fish in the sea. Ask about this woman's personality, he replies. She is 20 years old. She is a Mascois? Ma- Yeah. On another day, he says, she is a duchess, an Italian, an Italian. I don't know her last name, but her father is a major. She is a millionaire. She is richer than all the countenance put together. She has two small ponies that come from Russia. They are tied to a small car. By marrying her, I have been given the title of Baron because I had nothing. She married me despite of my illness because I am a good looking boy. She is as beautiful as the Holy Virgin. She's the one who makes it rain and could cause stars to fall. Apart from these ideas of satisfaction, including megalomania, he expressed ideas of persecution. That woman throws fishes into my face. I still had plenty down by my neck, down my neck. At, at, a bite earlier, sorry. They are a little like herrings. They pierce my skin. She does not she does it to turn me into an ugly boy. She's jealous of me. He also says that the butcher boy from X or 10 follows his wife and dresses up as a demon. He has horns on his head, sometimes throwing himself on his bed and stimulating his nerves with electric wires placed just above his bed, making him fall down on the ground. Wild crises. On another day, he said, quote, "It's not the butcher, it's my mother, who electrifies me to make me wild, out of jealousy of my wife. The electrical current passes through the floor, then into my feet and into the body. Doctor, who installed this current? R. It was installed in my room without me seeing by Dr. N, present at the questioning, and who had seen the patient at X or 10. I don't know who installed it here. B. The state of psychic functions outside of the delusion. The patient has a good orientation and knows that he's been at N since the month of April 1990. He correctly states his age, his birth date, his date of birth, his age of his mother, his address in X, where he lived with his mother, his grandmother, and his uncle, and so on. The interrogation was not easy owing to pronounced elocutions. Elocutions. Yeah, disorders. The patient speaks spasmodically, and in fits and starts and slowly. Outside of this observation, two facts can be established. Voluntary attention is well preserved. He makes an effort to reply exactly to the questions asked, but his comprehension appears rather slow. He declares that his memory has become worse. However, all in all, his memory, insofar as old and recent facts are concerned, appears normal, considering the individual's culture and the milieu in which he lived. In some, there are no noticeable signs of intellectual diminishment or emotional differences. Evolution, February 1920. Stationary states. Mental facilities are undiminished. Has the same delusional ideas. I now report Canard Canofilo and Jos Meckens first two observations seized on Blurier's conclusion. They tried to turn the psychoorganic syndrome into a mental characteristics of heterodoxasis. It will not evaluate the author's approach. I will not evaluate the author's approach, as I am convinced that their effort have their place in their discussion in the last chapter. In any case, I focus on the intellectual weaknesses in each of these cases of Frederick's ataxia in the psychoorganic syndrome. Janae L. born in 1900, hereditary antecedents, a sister suffering from Frederick's ataxia. the daughter of another sister, showing kymphosis. I'm going to see what this means. Oh, these are fun words to read. Note K. YPHOSIS. Definition. An excessive outward curvature of the spine, commonly referred to as hunchback or round back posture. Interesting. Pronunciation. Kyphosis. Club hands and cardiac malformation. Personal history. The patient went to school till the age of 12. Her schooling was poor. She learned well her hairdressing job. At the start of the war of 1914 and 1918, she set off for England and quit her job. She continued to help her mother with the housework for a few years, doing only the simplest chores, such as washing and cleaning the rooms. She never managed to learn to cook. Her character was calm and docile. In 1917, 17 years old, after a bout of the flu, the patient began to stagger while walking, such that the children of the street took her for a drunkard. At the same time, a sort of weaknesses came over her legs before moving gradually to her back, and a case of scoliosis appeared in 1922. 22 years old, she began to present intentions tremors, speech disorders, and some uncertainty in her gaze. As of 1923, she remained cautious continuously in bed, as standing upright without support and walking had become entirely impossible. In 1927, after about 10 years of illness, her sister, who is an intelligent person and a good observer, noted that the patient would start laughing or crying over a trifle, as well as have violent fits of anger for the slightest reasons, something that had never been observed before. From 1936, after 19 years of illness, she lost all interest in her family, whereas before she had always wanted to have the news of them. From around 1939, her comprehension slowed, as did her psychic reactions. Her affective liability, and above all, her irritability, became progressively worse. The neurological examination revealed a typical case of Friedreich ataxia. 4 months long psychic examination from December 1948 to March 1947. She seemed to have no money, troubles with old or recent events. Her ability to fix on numbers was slightly diminished, such that she could no longer keep in mind a 5-figure number for 10 seconds. She had good temporal and spatial orientation, as well as concerning her person. She knew her milieu well. She understood her understanding had slowed a little, but no other problems were manifest. She understood the questions asked her and performed the things as she was asked to. The succession of her thoughts was slow and imprecise. She often lost the topic of the story and obliged the questionnaire to remind her of the questions asked. The intelligence examination revealed a rather clear-cut mental disability. The patient made large errors in calculations. For example, 22 minus 15, 12. 15 divided by 4, 3. And was unable to solve only slightly complicated problems. For example, 39 plus 49. 88 plus 77, 42 divided by 2, 7 divided by 12. She did not know the province of Belgium and believed that Italy is a neighboring country. She did not know the name of the rivers of her country except Escott. Her faculty of abstraction was poorly developed. For example, she saw no difference between a dwarf and an infant, believing them to be identical. For her, the difference between a tree and a shrub is that the tree is taller, and the soldiers differ from the police agents in that the latter likes his jobs, where the former is obliged to do his. For her, a president of state is almost a king, and to have doubts means to and have debts means to lend. When we asked her to explain some simple notions, she gave general and imprecise replies, such as a law, it is to uphold the law. A newspaper, it has news in it. In addition, her knowledge of everyday life is rather minimal. She does not know how long it takes to walk a kilometer, and sometimes believes that the kilometer comprised 100 meters and sometimes 1 meter. She cannot read a clock, claims that an hour has 50 minutes, and does not know how many seconds are contained in a minute. She is unable to reproduce a simple story, the ass of the load of salt, that has been read to her twice, slowly, and seems not to have understood the requirements of the Jungri test association. After 15 seconds, she repeated the same words that had been said to her, and claimed she could not make any sort of association. Her schooling was poor, and she had not even learnt to cook. Alongside this mental debility, she particularly displayed problems in the affective domain, in which she was very unstable. When she was spoken to about her illness, she would start to cry, but recovered right after a gentle word, and would then laugh with all her might. When she asked why she was always turned off the wireless, she began crying, but it was enough to tap her gently on the shoulder to have a blissful smile appear on her face. The various questions of the psychological examination often caused her to burst out into laughter, which then demanded a break in the examination. The patient's sisters told us that she often cried out of rage when she didn't understand what was being said to her. The nun who has cared for her for 2 years now also noted that she began to laugh or to cry very easily, and not for apparent reasons, but for the effective liability. Her report. Yeah, it's not report. Rapport with her entourage is good. Her facial expressions, though rare, rather differentiated, and exaggerated, roughly corresponds to the psychological situation. Her activity is extremely diminished, and her psychic tendencies reveal major inadequacies. She is no longer interested in her family, whereas previously she had always asked for the news of them. When she received a visit, she replies briefly to the question, but never talks about herself. She spends her days doing nothing, does not concern herself with her illness, and makes no future plans. Also noticeable is her extreme susceptibility to fatigue, which requires several interruptions in the examination, and which did not exist prior to the illness. The Friedreich ataxia with psychoorganic syndromes. This seems like this. Jean P. born in 1894. Hereditary antecedents. Her mother died at 80 from an unexpected infection. Her father, an alcoholic, died at 78 from the neurological illness, whose details are unknown. She has 4 brothers and a sister, all in good health. A brother of 49 years of age also suffers from heterodoxia. Personal history. The patient was a full-term baby and learned to walk and speak normally. She had no illness except for the measles. She went to primary school until 14 years of age, and successfully completed an apprenticeship as a seamstress. Then she found a job as a personal carer and held it down for 22 years until the onset of her illness. She was able to earn her own living and enjoy the respect and consideration of her employers. In her spare time, she liked to busy herself with the flowers in the garden, do small handwork jobs, and read good books. For the From the age of 40, she began to suffer from walking difficulties, which forced her to give up her work. These walking difficulties became gradually worse, rendering her unable to walk along without using support. Some years after the onset of her walking disorder, speaking became difficult, and she noticed changes in her character. She was not as happy as before her illness, and was now quickly to anger over a trifle. Over a trifle, she would become angry and use the crudest swear words. But these crises generally passed in little time, and the quicker she was to anger, the quicker she would calm down again. Her brother, her sister-in-law, and her niece all confirmed that the patient began to manifest violent fits of anger with the onset of her illness, something she was not prone to before, the type of neurological syndrome of Friedreich ataxia. The psychological examination lasted for several months, December 1946, March 1947. Her memory displayed not the least confusion, rather for old events or for recent facts. The patient had good temporal and spatial orientation, as well as concerning for her persons. She had average intelligence and understood quickly and correctly the questions she was asked throughout the psychological examination. She was interested in good literature and could relate what she had read. Although the psychological functions described above are normal, the succession of her thoughts were palpably confused. She recounted piles of useless details of no relevance to the subject matter of her thoughts. Asked about her professions, she described the illness of her employers and the flowers in the garden of G, where she had worked. So I get it. It's just it's a variable for like the where she worked, the address. When recounting the story of her life, she totally lost sight of the issue and gave us a long, richly detailed description of the flowers that she had previously tended to. Her thoughts lost their accuracy, and she contented herself with vague and general expressions. To the question, "What books have you read?" the patient replies, "Beautiful books," but it was very difficult to find out which titles. Moreover, she showed a slight tendency to preservation. When asked what she does with her spare time, she literally replied, "In the flowers, there are many flowers, plant flowers, waiting to recite a small poem." She repeated 3 times, "It's raining, it's raining, it's raining," before reciting her poem. But more clear cut than the problems of coherency, in her thinking were the affective alterations. She displayed strong affective liability, which often entailed violent fits of anger. The patient herself told us that she could get angry over a trifle and utter dreadful swear words. These fits ended very quickly, but she could also burst out laughing for the faintest reason, and several times she forced us to interrupt the examination of cold sensitivities because she found it so funny that she laughed ferociously. The Banbiskia test made her scream out loud, and she accompanied her replies in the examination of tactile sensitivity with grimaces. Often she pounded her fist on the table to stress her ideas. Her general humor was euphoric, despite the serious illness from which she suffered, as well as the major difficulties and restrictions it placed on her life. She claimed to have occasional ideas of suicide, but said that she did not take them seriously. The medical examination was much to her liking and entertained her. Her affective expressions always corresponded to the psychological development, and she could have good effective relations with her entourage. The examination of her psychic tendencies showed nothing abnormal. She took an interest in good books, in newspapers, did the housework, and took pleasure in visiting from her visits from her friends. The young test shows a clear deficient of association. Often she merely repeated the test words, and in many cases simply gave the translation of it in slang. Her reactions were in general very slow. Our second patient is a woman of 53 years of age, suffering from heterodyaxia and from the Friedreich ataxia with incomplete, oh my gosh, cornoratic, I'm going to use prominence. Let me look up this word. Big word. Ooh, wrong one. You don't have to repeat it if you don't want to. It's corona. Corona. Yeah, it's giving me another word. I know it's giving. I know it's giving me another word. Yeah, a a coronal refers to the visual part of the tooth above the gum line, while radicular pertains to the root structure and below the gums. Weird. Predominance. Yeah, what I put that in, and what it wants me to do, it wants me to split them up. Yeah, it's weird. As the illness progressed, different psychic symptoms became manifest, notably a deficient in associations, including an inaccuracy in her ideas and the serpent of explanations, and a tendency to preservation, preservation. Wait, yeah, preservations. Yeah. Why are you going an obvious liability with lack of criticism and euphoria? Why'd you breathe heavy? Oh, okay. All right, next section. In case of delusions, the possession of historical structures. I contribute there here in the observation of a young woman suffering from Friedreich ataxia, with particularly delayed onset, in whom mental disorders appeared in its wake. Oh gosh, I have something in my eye. Hold on a second. Oh, I hate when tears get in your eyes and they're all salty. Salty tears. Salty tears! Anyways, these disorders, although weak in appearance, fit the frame of classical wildness. I used hysteria. So every time I use wildness, that's what you mean. C. Odile, 22 years old, hospitalized in the free ward of the neuropsychiatric clinic from December 18th, 1950 to 2nd May 1951, and interned in the county asylum of Le Venetaria since 22nd May 1951. Sent to hospital from the house for the disabled due to psychic disorders, agitation, ecstatic attitudes, talk about mystical and erotic themes or erotic themes, information about the family and the patient's behavior before entering hospital were obtained from the patient's elder sister, who is a social worker, hereditary and family background. The patient died of a non-neuro yeah, non-neuropsychiatric infection. Four sisters in good health, a brother in good health, four deceased brothers, three of whom died from progressive paralysis, not involving mental problems. However, the neurological disorders they presented were identical to those of our patient. Personal history. The patient lived lived with her grandmother until the age of 12, then with her aunts for some months, with her father until he died, and then in various religious hospices until the age of 18. She lived with her brothers and sisters, thus being able to witness the development of the illness of her three brothers. She completed her secondary studies only as far as the baccalaureate, I can't say the name, owing to her illness. She did not attempt a diploma of any sort. She always liked reading and hitherto has sought to keep abreast of modern literature. With her brothers and sisters, she has always shown herself to be rather unsociable, and liable to sudden mood swings. Also, to be mentioned as an evident sensitiveness in the various asylums at which she found herself. She got to know young disabled people, and since the start of 1950 has seemed greatly preoccupied with mysticism. The atmosphere in which she lived at the time seemed to have played a large role in the later development of her disorder, especially concerning its repercussions on the ego. In February 1950, though she had not presented any distinctive psychic disorder, she wanted to undergo a exorcism at La Salette. It is not known whether the exorcism was really performed. Also to be mentioned as is a stay she had in Algeria at around 10 years of age, during which the patient came into contact with the old woman from the country, who was well known for her occult talent, and who, it was said, practiced witchcraft. History of the illness. Neurological disorders began at the age of 12. Psychic disorders started towards the end of December 1950. The patient recounts that she had a nervous depression following a failed amorous adventure with her confessor. Almost said professor. My bad. She had believed that she had fallen in love with her. Certain signs, she said, had given her to understand that the abbot harbored very specific intentions towards her. For reasons unrelated to this adventure, she had to leave the hospital she was in for another asylum, at which she behaved normally for a period of some weeks. The disorders from which the patient was sent to us began after a new placement in an asylum in Lyon region. Upon coming to the ward in December 1950, we observed neurological syndromes. The patient had unable to walk. Speech was cerebellar, the kinetic type of cerebellar syndrome. Primordial syndromes, bilateral Bansky, problems with deep sensitivity, notability. What? Thank you. Notability in the test of the positions of the toes, abolition of tendencies, reflex of the lower limbs, reducible bilateral high arches, slightly myopathy of the lower limbs, normal fundus of the eyes, disassociated bilateral labyrinthian, hypo excitability, normal auditive acuity. My gosh. EEG normal, basal metabolism normal, LP CSF normal, serology negative, skull X-ray negative. Psychic disorders. On the first day, she stated to the orderly, "I am possessed by the devil," and I had a spectacular fit of agitation in front of the other patients in the room. The following day, we were able to ask her questions. Easy contact no problems with confessional series, slight euphoria, and an ironic smile at the start of the examination, highly changeable facial expressions throughout the conversation. She said that we were able to affect her thought in this room, that we were informed of her entire history, and we saw what she was thinking. Why ask me questions? You already know all my history. Then she declares to have slept with a young girl, age 8, and to have had sexual relations with her brother from 12 to 15 years of age. Recently, she was driven towards the abbot. Her words then became ambiguous. She hints that many things have happened. All these phenomena, these perversive acts, very much shows she explains that she is possessed by the devil, who was making her succumb to vice. She compared these diabolical acts to those described of Bernacio, and it's a French journal. But she said diabolical actions is more direct, more physical in a way. In the following days, the more she was questioned, the richer she sim, symptom symptom. I can't do this. Do you know what it means? What does the word mean though? Whatever.
Symptomology.
Oh, symptomology. The branch of medical service. Yes, they did a different word. It did it. It's Symptomology. And they give me something else because they did, it's an old word, it looks like. So, the branch of medical science concerned with the symptomatic studies, classifications, and assessments of symptoms. I'm telling you the truth. You want to see? I can show it to you. Okay. Hey, Bubba. Where was it? Okay, became. She has visions. She often has orgasms. Oh my gosh. In French. Oh, that was in French. Follow her, and mistreat her. At the end of the conversation, during which the patient's attitude had been, what do you don't write that. The patient's attitude had been equivocal. She told us, I am ready. And she confusedly explained that only a marriage would make up for the diabolical acts, realizing that the patients multiplied her delusions creations with each interrogation. We decided not to concern ourselves with her for a while. Upon assuming our examination, she admitted, given that our attitude was ironic, that she had made up a lot of the things she had said, and that at the bottom, she did not believe any of the stories about the devil. She claimed to have invented the story in order to distract herself and to seek refuge in the imaginary. However, she continued to present certain interpretations, notably finding similarities between specific doctors in the ward, her father, her brother, and her young abbot. In April 1951, almost said 18, the patient was placed in a special room because she refused to eat and objected to any interrogation. She lost a lot of weight. She presented some signs of hypocytolia. Oh yeah, it wasn't approved, Joe. Look at that. Go figure. Oops, wrong one. I wasn't approved, Joe. Can you believe that? Huh? It's like this one, they want me to do a different, thing. And I spelled it right, but they want to transfer it into like the modern term, I guess. An abnormal heartbeat characterized by a contraction of low intensity, where the heart does not empty adequately. Okay. Alterations in the form of ventricular complex on the ECG. On the 22nd May 1951, the patient was interned. Frederick ataxia, psychological compensation syndrome of a wild structure delusion of possession, anorexia, opposition, 24-hour assessment. Were you going to say something? No. Frederick ataxia, disillusion syndrome, agitations and opposition, 15 days assessment. Frederick ataxia, behavioral disorders, negativism, suspicious notions of influence of an external action, not to be discharged. Discussion. Neurological diagnosis. Oh, what time is it? Oh, we're good in there. Let's see how far this is real quick. Hold on. Can you remember 244? Oh, okay. We can go further. Okay, here we go. Neurological diagnosis, fully developed Frederick ataxia, 3 family cases. Psychiatric diagnosis. I hesitate for a long time between delusions of influence and psychological manifestations with a wild structure. This hesitation is justified within the current tendencies of psychiatric and tendencies that involves separating clearly disorders of consciousness from personality disorders. Henry I.E., in line with the conclusion of the Hindenburg School, emits to 2 modalities for understanding psychopathological life: an impairment to the ego, or an impairment of the ego, a disorder of consciousness. What are you doing? Of consciousness, or a dislocation of the person. Here we are rather dealing with a disorder of consciousness. In referring to classical symptomology, the following must be considered. 1. The plasticity of the delusional idea depends upon the attitude of the person doing the interrogation. This is literally a matter of pathetic. Is that right? Do you think I said it right? Pithiatic. Let's find out. Most likely you. Pithiatic. Hey. Hold on. Of course.
Introducing
You want Mike's lemonade?
3 unique characters.
You want Mike's hard lemonade?
You are looking at Julian's pronunciation guide, where we look at how to pronounce better some of the most
shut up.
words in the world, like this other curious word. But how do you say what you're looking for today? Let's learn how to pronounce these words in English. The spelling makes it a little bit confusing.
I'll just say the fucking word.
Pronunciation is pretty straightforward. Once you know, let's break it down. You have the phonetic spelling on your screen. Pathetic, that's British English pronunciation, the way it is pronounced.
Pathetic?
Okay.
Okay. It didn't even give me the right word.
The stress is on the second sentence.
I swear to God, it needs to be more. It needs to be better. Manifestation, that is what we call the adductive power of wild behavior. 2, the tendency to exhibit defects, Hartenberg, or to make things up, i.g., alleged incestuous relations. A claim of euphoric attitude in disillusion. The patient currently had fits of agitation, but always in the sense of this ambivalent attitude of adherence to the delusion, which could be called complacency, is very different from delusions of influence. And 4, a strong sexual charge, which impregnates the attitude of the conversation. For these reasons, we think that this was the case of delusion, or at least of delusional behavior with the wild structure. All right, now remember 245. Because I think I might stop here. Yeah. It's only got like 10 minutes. Yeah, 245. We'll stop here. We'll stop at where it says mental disorders and neurological disturbances. Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I just don't like, what is this? What are we reading this book for when all we're talking about is these disorders and stuff like that? I mean, they touched a little bit on the colonial situation, how the colonial situation brings us. They did touch a little bit on like how they gauge and how these things come arise within somebody. But now we're just going over like just documents and just going over people's like medical histories and stuff like that. What point are you getting with this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. As long as you're getting something out of it. I get some things out of it here and there, but I like the manual stuff. You know what I mean? The like the yeah. But I'm glad you're getting some out of it. I'm reading it for you too. So yeah, yeah, it's a little blah, but it's okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have a long ways to go. So all right. Well, I'll go ahead and close it out. I didn't want to move on because the next I would probably have to take it over. I don't want to go over. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you. All right. What? What? No. Hold on a second. Do something here. Um. All right. That's all I can do. That's all I got so far. All right, everybody. Have a good night.